Welcome to Firsts in Fiction, your first stop for learning to write better fiction. I'm Steve McLean, an aspiring writer.
And I'm Aaron Bianski, author of The Bargain, the Hand of Adonai series, and Firsts in Fiction.
Right now, we don't have Heather with us. She is mysteriously absent, so maybe she might join us later in the show. If not, Heather, we missed you.
Absolutely.
Today we're talking about titles, how to arrive at the perfect title for your book. So, Aaron, maybe you could throw out just quickly, how did you come up with the title for your book, The Bargain?
Well, that one I was pretty self-explanatory, I think, in the sense that it's a book about a bargain, and that was kind of the thrust of the novel, or at least the what-if type of a question, and so that's kind of what I wanted to lead with.
But why didn't you go with, like modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah as a title?
That I thought was a little bit too telling, a little bit too direct. I like my titles. I think the best titles add to the mystery rather than explaining the mystery. Does that make sense?
Did I just give away your book to everyone?
The whole thing. Spoiler alert. Sorry. My next novel is actually going to be called Spoiler Alert, by the way.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
So did you apply that title to your book before or after you wrote it?
Originally I called it Ashes, Ashes, and I really liked that name. Kind of the reference there to Ring Around the Rosies and this idea of misfortune and things of that nature. Yeah. And then I Googled it, and there are like 14 books called Ashes, Ashes.
Oh, I see.
So I thought, well, I'm not nearly as original as I thought. Irony of ironies, when I sent it to my publisher and said, I don't know if we want to go with The Bargain because there's like 900 books called The Bargain, he said, that's a good thing. He's like, well, when people are looking for those books, your book will also pop up. And so if there's some cross-pollination there. Yeah. So from a marketing standpoint, he said that was not as big of a negative as I originally thought it would be. So there's no way to copyright a title, so there's no question of infringement or anything like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about naming my book The Stand.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Or Romeo and Juliet.
Or Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. I was thinking maybe Harry Hotter.
Yeah, it comes with the implication this is better than what you might be thinking of.
It's actually hotter than what you were anticipating. It's quickly going downhill.
Yeah, so I did some looking around. You did some looking around before the episode, and some of the things that I found were just like you mentioned. There are other books out there that are called The Bargain. Mm-hmm. Well, in just the same way, there are other books out there that are in the same genre that you're in, or have the same type of storyline that you are looking to write.
Yes.
And so one of the things that's recommended is just to go into Amazon. That's a quick and easy place to search for books in a specific genre, and just look at those titles. And you may have even read some of them. So go back on some of the books that you've even read that are in the genre that you're writing for. Look at the titles on those and try to get some ideas from those. Those will give you some additional inspiration there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have done that before, or I know you've got a lot of working titles as well.
Yeah. I like to brainstorm titles.
Yeah.
I like to come up with lots of variants, because one thing when you're pitching a book, when you're submitting proposals, publishers like to see a variety of titles that they can choose from. And so you always put down working title is whatever, and then you say other titles include. And a lot of times they'll pick from that list. A lot of times they'll go, no, it's not working for us. Let's see what else you have. And so there can be this whole process of kind of a give and a take of trying to figure stuff out. And there's a lot of brainstorming. I actually really enjoy it, that process of brainstorming titles. I used to be really awful at titles. I'm not saying I'm fantastic now, but I feel like I'm a lot better than I used to be.
Yeah, one of the things that's thrown out there, you say you like to have a lot of titles. One of the things that they throw out there is brainstorming as a good way to really flesh out what you're looking to talk about, or what you're looking to describe by adding a title to your book. So, for instance, write down everything and anything that comes to mind about your book, even if it's, only tangentially related to something in your book.
Right.
Just write that down. Write it all down. Get a good list of maybe 50 or 100 words that from there you might be able to draw some inspiration from to create a title that's really actually fitting. And one of the words of advice is that you write your book and maybe you have a working title.
Yeah.
Like my working title for my book right now is called Betrayal,
Yeah.
and it just kind of characterizes a part of the book that happens that. Um, but I don't think it's a really powerful title. I think that that's going to have to be changed, especially considering the fact that my book has magic in it and it has a lot more than just a betrayal. It's more of like an epic fantasy. So I have to have
Right.
something more to it that I don't really have. So I have the working title is for the series right now is called Shaper, and that may change too.
Hmm.
Shaping is what it's called. The magic system that they utilize. That's what it's called is the shape and kind of shape the world around them type of thing.
I'm
So
just going to throw this out there. What about the shape of betrayal?
wow, see, you're doing it right now.
I just, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying maybe it goes on your proposal as a possible title.
There you go.
Um, I like that idea, like shaping and working the word shape into your title.
Yeah.
When you say your working title is betrayal and that you recognize that you may need to change that, I had a story called Appeasement. I originally went with Appeasement, and a lot of what I know about titles came from Brett Anthony Johnston. I haven't mentioned his name in what 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so
Hmm.
figure it's about time. By the way, I'm reading his latest novel, Remember Me Like This. Fantastic writing, just off the charts good.
All right.
He's one of those writers that really is inspiring to read. So I wrote this story called Appeasement, and he said, I don't like the title. And I'm going to paraphrase him because he's much more eloquent than am I. But essentially, he says, what you're doing is you're using a theme as a title. And you don't want to do that because, again, that reveals mystery rather than adding to the mystery. One of the lines I remember him saying most is, fiction works by distraction. And the title should be another element or layer of distraction. And so when you go with betrayal or appeasement, what you're doing is you're kind of directing the reader saying, hey, I want you to look at these things. Instead, you want the reader to focus on whatever they need to focus on. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right.
So adding a layer of mystery in that regard, I think, is helpful and beneficial.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the New York Times bestsellers right now, and I see number one is some book called Mr. Mercedes. I don't know, written by some guy named Stephen King.
Oh, okay. Well,
And then
sure.
yeah, a
Like he's
shiver
going to
of
amount to
light.
anything.
Yeah, seriously.
What is it?
Just because his name's King doesn't mean he's really going to go very far.
Right.
A shiver of light, which is kind of a cool sounding name. That
Mhm.
what does that bring to mind when you read a shiver of light?
The first thing that I think of is it's giving a uh,
Personification.
tangible kind of personification, a tangible aspect to light.
Yeah.
Synesthesia is what we'd call that. It gives a
Right. Right.
a feeling, word we would use for feeling to describe something that we perceive visually. So I'm a sucker for synesthesia, and so
Yeah.
I've two thumbs up. I mean,
Yeah.
synesthesia, boom, let's go.
Yeah. So what genre would you place that in? What would you think of it as
It's
probably?
for me, it sounds very literary.
Yeah.
I notice a lot of the literary works really have titles that work that way. All the Pretty Horses, Cormac McCarthy, No
Hmm.
Country for Old Men. The Road is a lot more direct, but the other two kind of have that almost literary kind of a feel to it. So,
You see
um,
the
yeah.
little the little line here that is associated with it. The one sentence pitch here is in the ninth Meredith Gentry paranormal romance. Mary must save herself and her triplets from Tyrannus, king of light and illusion. That is a shiver of light.
Interesting. So it's more
Yeah,
fantasy based.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think that something that goes along with the title, of course, is your cover art, which is probably also important to establishing what kind of a story it is. This is not showing me cover art, but I do see the little byline here. Um, yeah, let's see the Goldfinch, the Hurricane Sisters, Unlucky 13, Gone Girl, The One and Only,
Gone
Skin
Girl, I've
Game.
heard of. Skin
Yeah,
Game, I've heard of. That's a good one too.
I gotta say, not a lot of really revealing titles here in
Yeah,
the top sellers.
yeah. But once you read the book, you go, of course, that's what you call it. Like
Yeah,
that just makes a shiver of light. That, oh, it's beautiful. Like that
yeah,
makes perfect sense. So,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
I'd say that out of all of these, A Shiver of Light, all the ones that I've listed so far, A Shiver of Light is probably um, the most eye-catching out of this.
Hmm.
Unlucky 13 was a little bit eye-catching by James Patterson and
Uh,
Maxine Petro.
uh-huh.
Um, Interesting. With the return of a killer who was presumed dead, the San Francisco detective Lindsay Boxer and the Women's Murder Club take action. Interesting.
That does sound interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anyway,
well,
so aside from brainstorming and looking at Amazon, there's something else that's out there that's a way to figure out how you would title your book, and it's similar to looking at Amazon, but you can also just go to the box office and look at all the movies that are out right now and look at their titles and just see what works, and maybe I'm not sure how good of a gauge looking at popularity is, because you got a big name director or a big name producer, and that's going to go a long way to establishing the popularity of a movie. Um, the Titanic, I thought that was just going to sink, but it did really
ha,
well.
ha, I see what you did there.
Yeah,
I gotcha. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Gotcha.
I had to go way back for that one, but
Yeah, you did. You had to really reach deeply.
for those of you teenagers watching this show right now, Titanic was a movie that came out a long, long time ago. Was it like almost 15 years ago now or something?
Oh, gee whiz, maybe
Um,
more than that.
and that old guy Leonardo DiCaprio that's in movies
Oh,
now as an old guy, he
this
plays an old guy.
dude's
Um,
sketchy.
Back then he was the hot stuff, and he was one of the primary characters. Him and Kate Winslet, she plays an old lady and things now. Uh, yeah, it was a pretty big deal back in the day.
Yeah,
Anyway,
back in the day. So, um, were you were still working on something? You were still saying something? Because Molly Joe's got a question here.
oh yeah, no, just take
So,
the question. I have no idea what I was talking about. I'm just
all right,
wondering.
fantastic. As am I. So, Molly Joe asks, what do the both of you think about subtitles or taglines? It seems lately you have to have more than just a title on the cover to attract readers. What do you think? And if you agree, how do you come up with that? That's a really good question. I think taglines and subtitles are different things. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously speaking. Power of understatement there, right? So Captain Obvious. A subtitle. Um, I know my publisher relies on them very heavily because they want basically, excuse me, they want the title to be searchable. So when you go into Amazon and you're looking for a book about whatever, you type that in, you want the return to pull up something in your title or in your subtitle or in your book description. So having kind of that subtitle, as I understand it, helps out, which is why you see very long subtitles on my novels. That's something that the publisher is doing. I never pitch my books with subtitles. I always I mean, if the publisher wants to do that, that's the publisher's business. That's fine. But I
Mhm.
never pitch it with subtitles just because I don't think in those terms. But a lot of my subtitles that my publishers put on end up sounding like taglines. Okay,
Mhm.
and so the tagline is just going to be like a one sentence, kind of give the exposition of the novel, the what if of the novel, to pique readers' interests, and that's fine. I think it's a I think it's a really beneficial exercise for writers to write not only the back cover copy for their novel, but also to write the tagline, to write a tagline, something that's going to go on the front cover, to kind of maybe explain a little bit more of the mystery, maybe not answer all of the mystery, but speak a little bit to the particular mysteries that the reader may encounter throughout the course of the novel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Something that I'm getting from this is that something maybe you want to consider when you're creating a title is asking a question of a prospective reader in order to get their mind going. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that can really be accomplished by having a little tagline underneath the name of it, like Hunger Games. I could imagine something like having the fight to survive, um, the fight to survive your friends killing you, or something like that underneath it.
Right. Right.
That could be thought provoking. That could be interesting.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting. There's a few more layers to this than I initially had thought. But that's a
Yeah.
good question. Very good question.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
So.
know, like for my pitches for my book, I have a few things. Like one is a betrayed man makes the journey from good to evil, discovering secret magic and becoming a dreaded villain, which feels a little wordy as a subtitle there. Um,
Yeah.
then I have one, when two magic systems collide.
Hmm.
Let's see, and then innocent man is betrayed and locked away for years, but he escapes and discovers the means to take his revenge. Um, Things like that. I could probably shorten those up significantly and do like a little tagline, something like that.
Right. Right. But that's something that you continue to work on as the process goes on, and once you finish the novel, you have a better understanding of what it is that the shape that the novel's taking. If you'll continue to let me use that term, um, and once you know that shape, you can speak to it a lot better. For example, if we go back to that idea about appeasement, the story I had called Appeasement, um, something that I'd missed in the setup of the story is that it takes place during the coldest winter in recorded history for
Hmm.
this particular place, and that becomes kind of a thing, not a big thing, but it becomes a bit of a thematic thing, and so the title for Appeasement actually became the coldest winter. Um, I'm trying to think of the other one that I had. One of the other stories I had was called Leaving Tennessee. I can't remember what it was called originally, but I really liked Leaving Tennessee because I thought it added some mystery to it.
Yeah.
When that was published, it was published under the title An Affair to Forget because that spoke a little bit more to the meat of the story, to
Right.
the heart of the story, if you will. And that was again a publisher decision. Personally, I still like Leaving Tennessee, but again, unless you know what to look for on Amazon, that book's not popping up. You
Do
know,
you think that creating a title initially, at least, is probably only most important for presentation purposes to a publisher? Because from what I'm reading, just looking around here, it seems like publishers will generally change the title to
yeah,
something else.
yeah, publishers have the right. But again, that's one reason why on your proposals you want to give them some other suggested titles. Alternative titles include, and then you list them, a bullet list of
Yeah.
three or four or something like that, because they're a lot more likely to go to that than they are to just randomly pick their own. Um, with An Affair to Forget, that kind of came about. I wasn't actually shopping that around. That was just kind of an interesting way that came to be published. But once I was talking with my publisher, he was like, "Hey, I'm just going to do that. Is that cool? Can I just publish it?" I was like, "Sure." And that's when he started going through the process, and he said, "Okay, you know, let me show you how it's done." And that's when he decided to change the title.
Hmm.
With the bargain, I suggested a different title, and he was like, "No, I like it. Let's keep it." So it's one of those things where you never really know what the publisher is thinking until they kind of decide. I'm lucky enough to be working with a publisher that actually values my insight and my input and will listen to what I have to say. A lot of times, some of the bigger publishers will just say, "Okay, this is the title we're using, and if you don't like it, I guess you could send the advance back, and just send them all the money and forget the contract." But usually, you're not going to be that ruthlessly committed to your title.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, the theme that I've been seeing a lot of is, in particular, brainstorming, and not just having one title for your book. Make a list of titles that are all interchangeable, that are things that you're satisfied with, especially since a publisher will likely pull from that list if there's anything that really appeals. And so you can at least maybe also be responsible for that title, as opposed to allowing somebody else to pick and choose that. Or maybe that's your cup of tea. Maybe you want somebody to pick your title for you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you want to have your own title. You want to have
Oh
something
yeah.
that you can go with, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
But
looking here at the.
multiple levels of brainstorming, that I think is one of the best ways to really get, and maybe even waiting until you're done with at least your outline to choose a title.
Yeah, I mean, put any old title you want on there until the book is done, and once the book is done, then you come back and you look at it. In the same way that I say your first line that you write for your novel is probably not going to be the first line that you're going to have upon
Yeah.
publication. One of the first things that I do once I put the end is I go back and I look at the title. Is this the title that I want? And then I think, let me look at the first line. Is this the first line that I want? Those two for me really, really go together. And I think especially in shorter forms like short stories, especially in poetry, the title of the poem can actually be like an additional line, and it can feed directly into the text of the poem.
Yeah.
So because you have such a compressed form, short stories, flash fiction, microfiction, I'm militant about the title because the title in such short forms have to pull their weight and they
Yeah.
have to do something. They have to begin the mystery, if you will. Uh, look,
You
you're going
know,
to say,
you
I
know what's
was,
interesting is Ted Decker. He's an author that I like that I've read a lot of his books. He actually wrote a book called Blink, and I'm
mhm.
pretty sure that he has since retitled it and also created new cover art for it. He retitled it Blink of an Eye, and I'm pretty sure it's got a subtitle too now. Oh shoot. How do I look at the book? How do I look at the cover?
Go to Amazon.
Yeah, I'm on Amazon. I'm trying to look at the cover. Oh, there it is. Uh, he's changed it from just Blink to Blink of an Eye. Love changes everything.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like his it's a romance type of thing, but it's also got like um it's almost like I'm not exactly sure how to describe it other than saying it's a very fast-paced fantasy element to it.
Interesting.
Not high fantasy, but the guy in the book has the ability to see the future. So that's
Hmm.
pretty cool.
We've got another comment here in the page or podcast page here.
Uh-huh.
Um, it says, "I know I want my what I want my title to say, but all the ideas I have are either clumsy or too hard to pronounce." And then she lists her working title, which I'm not going to say because I will mispronounce it. And she said, the question is, I worry about marketing when most people won't be able to pronounce the title. And
Remigium
well,
Rising? Remigium Rising? It's either Remigium or Remigium, or maybe it's something
sure,
completely else. Something
I
totally different. I don't
I
know.
can't even I can't even pronounce my wife's name. I just call her Honey or Babe. So you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and Molly Joe suggests maybe doing something with a rhyme so that people will pick up on the rhyme and be able to pronounce it. I thought that's kind of a interesting suggestion there.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's a valid concern. It's a valid question about whether or not this is going to be if it's not pronounceable. I think that could be a problem. I think
Yeah.
that the publisher at that point might kind of step in and say, hey, you know what? Let's run with a different title, something that's a little bit easier. I would ask why. I like the rising part, but I'm not sure about the remigium or the remigium. I'm not sure if it's a soft G or a hard G. I'm
Yeah.
guessing, and maybe she wants to quotidian light. Am I say quotidian light is the name of the person asking this. Do you? I'm not sure I know her. Do you know her?
She's a YouTuber. She has a YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So my question, that's right. I've tuned in
Quotidian Light.
once or
Right.
twice. Yeah. Remedium Rising. I would wonder why she's using that particular title. I'm wondering if it's the name of a character or perhaps a setting or something like that. I
Yeah.
like the word rising. I like the alliteration of it.
Yeah. That definitely brings to mind an action that's happening. I mean, that's that's good. But this goes back to like my character names way back when I very first started writing, and I was allowing my girlfriend, who has since become my wife, read my
Mhm.
writing, and she's like, "Yeah, whoever this guy is," she's like, "I just say this for him." And for that
Yeah,
guy, I just say this, and I'm like, no, that's not the names at all, not
yeah,
even close. She's like, well, you need to do something about the spelling here and the length of these words, because I was like, well, obviously it's Dominatratuous, and this here is Concodious. I mean, come on.
yeah,
But she pointed something out. It was a valuable lesson, and that is, you know, and this ties into killing your darlings as well. You
yes,
have to be ruthless with some of the things in your book that you've fallen in love with. For instance, a particular name of a person or place that you've just had set in your mind. For instance, I really think Stephanie Meyer, when she wrote the Twilight series, and she had the name of the um, the the offspring between Bella and Edward, their child that they had. She came up with the name Renesmee, which was a cross between the two mothers, Edward's adopted mother and her mother. Um, it was Renee and Esme, and combine that, and it's Renesmee. But everyone, when they read that, there was this major uproar from the community, and everyone was like, "This is ridiculous! This is ridiculous!" And Stephanie's response was, I came up with it so long ago, and it's just become so normal to me because that's what I've been looking at, and that's what I've thought of this character as, that it never even occurred to me that people might not like that name. But that's it's one of those things that it just really. Did I lose you, Aaron? Are you there?
quiet. Can
Hello?
you hear me? Can
Yeah,
you hear
yeah.
me?
You there?
Okay. Yeah, I'm responding in the chat room.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but I
So
am
you
still
no.
listening.
Okay.
I am still listening.
So anyway, what all I'm saying is that things like that, even though you're in love with it, even though it's something that you really really don't want to part with, you might want to consider parting with it. And that's one of the hard things about being a writer.
You know, funny that you mentioned that because the more I'm thinking about her particular title, the Remisium Rising or the Remigium Rising, I'm liking it. As a matter of fact, I almost think that that's a workable title in the sense that um, it the action of rising I think is good, and I think that's enough to carry the other word Remisium or Remigium, however it's pronounced. I'm not sure the pronunciation is actually that big of a deal if it's a proper noun. If it's the name of a person and or a place, I
Sure.
think it'll be okay. And as people read it, I'm going to tomato tomato. I don't think it's going to affect our love of the book. And so I don't think that a publisher is necessarily going to be turned off from something like that. But like you say, Steve, it is definitely something to ask yourself. You have to ask yourself the tough question: is this too much? Is it too tough? Or is it going to be something that is worthwhile?
She says remigium is the topmost part of a bee's wing, or a boating oar. It has a very applicable meaning to the book itself. I'm writing literary fiction, so I'm not sure if that changes things when I think of the market for my book. So it may. And one of the things I was going to say is if for instance this is a well-known place in your book, and you've mentioned it quite a few times, like um, you know, for instance, if Brandon Sanderson, one of my favorite authors, he's writing this Stormlight series, and if he were to mention something like Irathiru in the title of his one of his books, I would know that. I would recognize it. And I would see it, and I would think, okay, that's Irathiru. Obviously, this is a place, and this is we she says we both got her name in the end. Okay.
What's
Yeah.
that?
So she says you two both got my name in the end.
Oh,
So
okay, cool.
yeah, quotidian light. So it anyway. If it's something that really is prominent in your book, maybe just the fact that people don't know how to pronounce it might be enticing. I mean, that's a bit of a mystery in and of itself. What is this word, and what is this about?
I'll say this because Remigium is now sounding like it's not a place, like it's not a proper noun. Um, I didn't know what it was. I like to
Yeah.
fancy myself a fairly intelligent, intellectual kind of a guy, pretty expansive vocabulary. So now I just feel completely humbled. Thank you for that. Uh, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to look words up. And I remember I made a big deal, in one of the reasons the bargain got rejected a lot at the beginning, at the outset, was because I was writing, I'm going to put quotes around here, literary fiction, which meant I wanted people to call me smart and wonderful. And so I threw in every big word I could find. And it wasn't until until I read Stephen King's book on writing that talks about using the first word that comes to mind and never stretching for a word because you're probably going to pick the wrong word.
Hmm.
I found myself doing that a lot. And so I had to go back through the bargain and kind of pick that out. It became very pretentious. The writing became very pretentious, very showy, and that really worked against the publishable quality of the book. It really challenged that. And so I had to kind of scale that back a little bit. Now, my character is a journalist, an intelligent journalist, so he does still use some fairly descriptive writing and some fairly challenging words. But at the most part, I was able to kind of scale that back. So that might be something to consider. Is this something that it sounds like it's central to the theme of the novel? It's got enough mystery, and if somewhere throughout the course of the novel this word is brought up and explained, then I would say run with it, quite honestly.
Yeah, I'd say it's a title that's growing on me, and
Yeah,
probably a publisher I could see doing the same, saying the same.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
And here's one thing. Whereas an editor would possibly be inclined to toss a book if the first line slash first page slash first chapter is not really engaging, there you don't have to have the perfect title on your proposal. They're going to be looking at the quality of the prose predominantly. But I will say a real quality title that piques their interest and establishes that mystery is going to make them a lot more willing to read the proposal and want to hang on to that proposal. So I don't think it's going to I don't think a bad title works completely against you, unless it's something like Untitled, you know, obviously the title of your story.
yeah, like
But
blank.
blank, yeah. I mean, come up with a title, obviously, but a bad title is not going to sink you. A good title can have some tremendous upside for you.
Okay. Well, any other questions from anybody out there? I really
I,
appreciate the questions. This is awesome.
yeah, it really is. And I do want to say one other thing real quick before we start to sign off. Probably the best advice for titles that I've gotten, I've seen it on several different websites. I can't say for sure that Flannery O'Connor originated this idea, but it's where I first heard of it was in her book Mystery and Manners, and she champions going through and finding a central image and using that image and or that line to serve as a title. For example, one of my favorite stories that she wrote is called "The Life You Save May Be Your Own," and as you read it, you don't really understand what it refers to. But at the very end, there's a guy driving a car very quickly in the rain, and there's a sign, a road sign that says, "Slow down, the life you save may be your own," and he is speeding up. So it speaks thematically to what's going on. A Good Man is Hard to Find is another Flannery O'Connor perfect title. Everything that rises must converge. The Violent Bear It Away, which is a biblical reference. A lot of times you can take things like children's rhymes or cliches and twist them, kind of like I was trying to do with the Ashes, Ashes. So taking commonalities like that and then just tweaking them a little bit to make them new and unfamiliar and unique, that can serve your purpose quite a bit as well.
Okay. Favorite title ever? Go.
Oh man, you
You
can.
want me to go with mine first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you some time to think. Okay.
Okay.
Mine is A Wrinkle in Time.
I will accept that.
Yeah.
I like that.
What do you got?
Absolutely. Man, so many books. Maybe The Life You Save May Be Your Own. Um, probably something that Flannery O'Connor's done.
Yeah.
I also like Brett Anthony Johnston's Remember Me Like This.
Yeah.
And as you read the novel, you start to go, oh, okay, sure. He actually, oh man, I'll try and find it for the show notes, but he talks a little bit about how the original title that he wanted to run with, and then the publisher said no. And it's a line from a song that he really enjoyed. So I can't remember the exact song. I'm sorry. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I really liked A Wrinkle in Time just because it that captures your interest and draws you in. I mean, it immediately it just brings to mind this something that sounds almost like a mystery, um, and it's referring to time, so you automatically think that there's something paradoxical about it, and something that's very thought provoking, and and it's a children's book by Madeline L'Engle, and yeah, it's a really good book, and it's a fun read and everything. But I just love that title. I've always loved that title.
You know, as I'm thinking about it now, Blue Like Jazz, Donald Miller.
Okay.
Love that title too.
Yeah,
Another good
that is
one.
good.
So yeah, maybe Hand of Adonai, maybe The
That's a
Bargain.
great one.
Uh,
Yeah.
just off the top of my head. First in Fiction, I think, is a fantastic title. My favorite
Molly
thing,
Joe.
Steve, yeah, Molly Joe wants to write a book titled Right, Right.
Right.
Oh wait, I messed that up. It's Right, Right.
It's right. Right?
It's all about punctuation.
Yeah. You ever feel like the English language should have some form of indicator to let us know where the emphasis should be?
The emphasis, so we put the right emphasis on the right syllable.
Yes, Mike Myers.
Okay, so yes, maybe not. I just had something very profound that I was going to say, and I completely slipped my mind. This is
You're
what
welcome.
happens when we do these late at night.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, I
Oh, I
appreciate
know
your
what I was going to say.
profundity. Oh, what is it?
There we go. Well, I was just going to reminisce about when you and I sat down to try and brainstorm ideas for titles for our podcast about
Yeah.
fiction after I'd written the book Firsts in Fiction, and it
Mhm.
took us a few weeks before one of us finally said, "Hey, why don't we just call it Firsts in Fiction?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, and it was pretty obvious at that point. It felt like we were just a couple of dummies.
yeah, yeah,
That's kind of like a common theme, though. Like
yeah,
a couple
exactly.
of dummies getting on the
Come listen
podcast,
to our ignorance, and as we profess to be intelligent. So,
and all right,
right
Aaron,
on.
you do know how people can get in touch with us, right?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
Why don't you let everyone know?
Oh, okay. Facebook.com/firstsinfiction. You can email us firstsinfictionpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at firstinfiction. Also, our personal accounts at Adi Gansky and at Steve McLean. I'm at aarongansky.com, as you can see down at the bottom there. How about you, Steve?
If you want to, get in touch with me, I actually forgot to put my website down, um, but I'm not keeping up
Chances
on it
that
very much anyway right now because I'm
swamped with
busy with
work.
work and other things at this point. So, if you want to go to my website and see some of the fun stuff that I've written in the past, go to Steve McLean. That's Stevemclain .wordpress.com, and you can find my entertaining stuff there. So, Heather, we're sorry we missed you, and
Yeah,
look forward to having you next week. Hopefully, not sure what happened. Hopefully, everything's okay. That's it.
yeah,
Aaron, you want to sign us out?
absolutely. Until next week.
Good writing. Thank you, everyone. Thanks
Yeah,
for
I
attending.
forgot. I forgot that part. Thanks all for listening. Until next week.
Take care.
All right.